In the gripping narrative that unfolds within the confines of an interrogation room, Dominique Davis finds himself ensnared in the intricate dance between choices and consequences. The circumstances leading up to this pivotal moment began when Dominique was arrested for the shooting of Curtis Sims a little after 2 p.m. in the 8500 block of Aventine Lane near North Tarrant Parkway and U.S. Highway 377.
So, you are under arrest right now for the charge of murder. I understand you may have made a statement to an officer when he got on scene that you took a gun from somebody and stuff like that. I don't know. That's what I'm here to talk about you about. But based on the investigation so far, I believe that you're responsible for a murder, okay?
After being arrested, Dominique told the police that the man had pointed a gun at him and that he had just taken the gun and turned it against its owner. Little did Dominique know that a vigilant neighbor's security camera had meticulously recorded the entire encounter. The security footage reveals a dramatic encounter between Dominique and a man identified as Curtis Sims, a romantic rival reportedly dating Dominique's ex-girlfriend. Curtis had approached him aggressively. The two engaged in a physical altercation with punches thrown with abandon. In a pivotal moment, Dominique, seemingly overpowered, reached for a firearm, firing several shots into Curtis's stomach. After Curtis falls to the ground, Dominique proceeds to deliver 2 more fatal shots in an execution-style manner. Unaware that the police have access to this footage, Dominique enters the interview room, anticipating a defense for what he believes to be a self-defense shooting. Armed with this damning evidence, Detective Sullivan, the lead investigator in this complex case, entered the interview room, confident in the reality that was about to shatter Dominique's version of events. Sullivan begins by establishing a rapport with Dominique, introducing himself and establishing the date and time of the interview. It was on the 8th of January of 2022, around 5:08 p.m. Then he introduced his partner, Detective Anderson, setting the stage for the unfolding drama. He quickly went through the routine questions, gathering information about Dominique's name, address, and other personal details. Dominique revealed he was between addresses and had no active cell phone. The conversation took a serious turn when Sullivan informed Dominique that he was under arrest for murder. The detective then proceeded to read Dominique his Miranda rights, explaining the right to remain silent, the right to a lawyer, and the right to terminate the interview. Despite the gravity of the situation, Dominique agreed to talk, stating that he wouldn't say much. The detective reassured him they could proceed, as long as Dominique was willing to talk. Dominique began recounting the events leading to the shooting, stating that he was walking and got into a confrontation with someone outside of a car. Detective Sullivan asked for details, including whether the altercation occurred inside or outside the car. Dominique explained that he was outside the car and the other person exited their car to fight. The conversation took a more detailed turn as Dominique described reaching through the open window of the other person's car to retrieve a gun from the cup holder. He admitted to shooting the person, claiming it was in self-defense. Detective Sullivan then asked for specifics, such as how many times Dominique shot the person and what happened immediately afterward. Detective Sullivan inquired about the proximity of the person when shot and whether he made any threatening comments. Dominique explained that the person dropped to the ground after the first shot and he didn't shoot again. When asked if the gun belonged to him, Dominique confirmed it did not and agreed to provide a DNA sample to verify his statement. Detective Sullivan continued the conversation by explaining the importance of cooperation and how it could affect Dominique's case. He emphasized that although Dominique was going to jail that night, the investigation was ongoing and video evidence could play a crucial role. Detective Sullivan expressed that Dominique's cooperation and the evidence from the fight could impact how the case would be perceived. The detective then introduced a consent form for a cheek swab test, assuring Dominique that it was a non-intrusive procedure. He explained that the test's purpose and how it could be used to analyze DNA. Detective Sullivan clarified that the DNA from the gun could help support Dominique's claim of taking it from another person's car. After Dominique agreed to the cheek swab, Detective Sullivan read the consent form aloud, detailing Dominique's agreement to the test and the voluntary nature of his consent. They confirmed the date and time, and Dominique signed the form. Detective Sullivan shifted the conversation to personal details, asking about Dominique's education, whether he graduated from Central School, and if he had any children. Dominique revealed he had a 3-year-old daughter. The conversation then turned to the potential motive for the fight, with Detective Sullivan mentioning rumors about it being related to a girl named Sierra Reddick. Dominique claimed he didn't know, and Detective Sullivan pressed Dominique for information about the motives behind Curtis coming over and initiating the fight. However, Dominique responded the same way, saying he didn't know. Sullivan asked about recent phone communications or any threatening texts, seeking to determine if there was a history of conflict between the two. Detective Sullivan proposed using a forensic downloader on Dominique's phone to analyze its contents, emphasizing that it could prove his innocence without threatening messages. However, Dominique hesitated and ultimately declined the offer. Detective Sullivan stressed the importance of the potential messages, suggesting that their absence could be significant, but Dominique refused, stating there were no such messages. The detective then revealed that the entire incident was captured on video, emphasizing the presence of video evidence. He questioned Dominique about reaching into Curtis's car, prompting a disagreement about the details. Sullivan expressed doubt about Dominique's claim that he didn't reach into the other person's car. Dominique insisted on seeing the video to prove his point. As the conversation continued, Detective Sullivan questioned Dominique's actions during the fight, specifically why he shot the person when they were on the ground. There was confusion about whether Dominique initially admitted to shooting the person, and Detective Sullivan pressed for details about the altercation. The conversation took an emotional turn as Detective Sullivan discussed the gravity of the situation and whether Dominique felt sorry for what happened. Dominique asserted that he was telling the truth. Detective Sullivan confronted Dominique with the video evidence, expressing concern about the apparent execution-style shooting while the other person was on the ground. He urged Dominique to provide an explanation for this action, emphasizing that judges and juries would be the one making the decision based on the facts. Despite Dominique admitting to pulling the trigger, Detective Sullivan mentioned the need to analyze the video frame by frame to understand the sequence of events. He highlighted that based on the initial review, he hadn't seen Dominique reach into the car as claimed. Detective Sullivan empathized with Dominique, stating that he didn't believe him to be a killer and encouraged him to share the backstory of the incident. He asked for information about why the other person came over, emphasizing the importance of providing context for the decision-makers. Detective Anderson joined the conversation, focusing on the moment Dominique fired the shot. He questioned the necessity of the subsequent shots while the person was on the ground, asking about the perceived threat and the reason behind firing multiple times. Dominique explained that the other person had a gun on his lap while still in the car and was verbally threatening. He claimed that he shot in self-defense when the person got out of the car and physically confronted him. Detective Sullivan then clarified the timeline, establishing that Curtis had the gun in the car but got out ready to fight. He questioned Dominique about the necessity of firing additional shots while the person was already on the ground. Later, Dominique admitted that the other 2 shots may not have been necessary. Detective Sullivan pressed further, asking if Dominique had only fired the first shot to the stomach and then called the police, saying the other person might still be alive. Dominique acknowledged the possibility, but he admitted to firing the fatal shots to the head. Detective Sullivan questioned Dominique's decision not to flee the scene, and he probed into the relationship between Dominique and the other person, specifically mentioning rumors about a falling out over a girl. Dominique claimed uncertainty about the cause of the dispute. Detective Sullivan continued the conversation, probing Dominique about the reason for the falling out with the other person involved in the incident. Dominique admitted they had a dispute about a month ago, right before his and his daughter's birthdays. However, he was unwilling to disclose the reason, suggesting others could provide that information. Dominique defended his actions, reiterating that he retrieved the gun from the cup holder, not his waistline. When Sullivan asked what should happen to him, Dominique expressed uncertainty about what should happen to him and acknowledged that he might end up in jail. Detective Sullivan then informed Dominique that he was under arrest for murder and explained that he could potentially bond out if he had the necessary funds. The detective asked Dominique about his perspective on the events, questioning if he would do the same thing given the same circumstances. Dominique initially hesitated, but eventually admitted that he probably would have done the same. Dominique expressed his belief that if someone poses a threat with a gun, it's their fault if the other person manages to use it against them. The conversation delved into Dominique's actions during the incident, questioning if he would have shot the other 2 rounds again. Dominique admitted he didn't realize he was doing it in the heat of the moment and that it was likely based on how he was feeling at the time. If you're liking this so far, please let us know by subscribing to our channel. The conversation concluded with Detective Sullivan informing Dominique that crime scene investigators would document his injuries to show there was a fight. His cell phone would be collected under a search warrant, and he would be taken to jail that night. Despite offering snacks or assistance, Dominique declined. However, Dominique asked if he could call someone, but the detective declined due to the policy against allowing calls. Dominique Davis was charged with murder on March the 2nd of 2022 and was sentenced to 15 years in prison.